This is Craig and Andrew, two Ranger qualified Army officers with MBAs, here to help you improve your business through leadership.
Each week, we'll deliver easy lessons from the battlefield to the boardroom on how to improve team performance. If you're a leader or want to be, this is the place for you.
Welcome to the cohort.
Disclaimer: the views in this podcast are those of the authors alone and do not represent the views of the Department of Defense or the U.S. Army.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Command Post Cohort.
Good morning, everybody.
I think today we're going to talk a little bit about the human side of leadership. A lot of times we talk more frameworks and operational side, but I think that something that we can't overlook is all of the human element, and as well as we'll talk a little bit about the idea of servant leadership and how that plays a role in the culture that you build.
Yeah. So leaders are humans, right? People are humans, surprisingly enough, Craig. So
And we
for
come with variables.
yeah, some experiences may vary. So, for example, Craig, I don't know if anybody's watching this, but they can see like my hair is quite short right now, shorter than it normally is. This is a human story here. So I got a haircut yesterday, and it's just much shorter than I normally like it. This is almost as short, if you remember this, Craig, as the haircut I got right before your wedding, and everybody was laughing at me in the pictures.
Yeah.
I think there's one picture of all in our tux that we're getting ready for the wedding, and all the groomsmen are pointing and laughing at me. Anyway,
Yep. I do remember that.
yeah, leaders are humans. People are humans, and there's a very kind of real side to that. With needs, right, and feelings, as much as we sometimes avoid trying to talk about it.
Yeah. And when I think of how a lot of people throw out that idea of servant leadership, what's it
Mm-hmm.
look like? And I think back, it's all about taking care of your people.
Yeah,
But I also think, and we're going to get into this with some examples later, of you're trying to build a culture where taking care of each other is kind of a two-way street. And it's not one directional. It's not that the junior members take care of the senior members, and it's
yeah,
not that you're trying to get everybody looking out for everybody else, so that it is a not only collaborative when it comes to work, but also when somebody's struggling with something, maybe they're just having a bad day, maybe um, it's those little human interactions of, hey man, is everything all right? Normally somebody that's all chipper and happy isn't. I mean, asking about each other and getting to that human side of these relationships, because all this trust building is essentially building relationships with our team over time.
yeah, yeah. It's almost like taking care of each other is an accidental output of true good servant leadership, right? If you as a leader, or if the leader takes those extra steps to make sure the obstacles are removed, right, first off, for business case, but then also human obstacles, right, the interactions are removed, right, a baseline of trust is built, then everybody kind of buys into that and starts taking care of each other, like you said, and that includes the leader, right? It's not a task. There's no task that a servant leader is going to give to an employee or a subordinate and say, "Hey, I need you to take care of me in this way." Like that usually doesn't happen, right? Because the whole framework is the other way around.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to understand and really internalize that you as a leader, you're a part of that.
Yeah. And I think because it's not a task that we are comfortable, saying, hey, look, this is what you've got to do, take care of me, because that is kind of against what servant leadership's all about, because
Yeah.
we always talk about, we're trying to take care of everybody else and
Yeah.
we're last. But I think that then causes, when we do need to ask for help as leaders, it creates like this internal friction point. And
Yeah.
I'm just as guilty as everybody else of people that don't want to ask for help. I mean, it can be something as simple as a house project, and my wife will be in the same room as me. And rather than ask her, hey, can you hold this? I will build an entire new contraption just to hold the other end of whatever project I'm working on totally unnecessarily. I'll take a 30-second task and turn it into a 3-hour production.
With a very narrow margin of success and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
catastrophe.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And whatever I develop and build, because I'm not an engineer, like it's
It's
probably not
rickety
even going to
crap.
hold it up. So, um, but it goes back to like, as a leader, if you have spent a significant amount of time trying to, like, no, servant leadership's important, I'm going to take care of the
Mm,
team. But there's going to come a day where you need help on something and you got to ask for it. And it can be, again, it goes back to those difficult conversations. It's
yeah,
no different than conflict resolution that you don't want to go address. It's also like, well, I don't want to ask for help because
yeah,
I don't want them worried about me.
yeah. Yeah, so just recently, we released the episode about cross-functional leadership. So you can go check that out in the backlogs there. But in it, I just talked about how there's this idea, the priorities of work, right? The saber, the saddle, the self, as we say in cavalry terms. But the idea that you take care of the saber first, your weapons, the saddle, your vehicle, your all your different equipment, and then you take care of yourself, right? So as leaders, we've got that going on in our brains, right? Got to take care of everything and everybody else first. Make sure that's all straight before we can worry about ourselves, right? So I've got actually another great story, especially as we gear up for the Iron Bowl coming up here, Craig. Um, it's actually in that same operation we were doing there in that story about the cross functional leadership. So to kind of set the stage again, this was a big operation we were doing in Afghanistan. My company was going to stage out of our sister company's base, which was Baraki Barak or BBK. And we were closing down a base, EBK, which is a little further out, kind of in a straight line. So we were staging out of BBK to pull equipment out of EBK. And this is a base where we didn't normally stay, right? It's a really big operation, took several days. We weren't where we normally were, right? So that's the framing of the story. So we got the first night or first day, we got to my sister company's base. And by the time I got everything kind of done, by the time we got there, got everybody parked, got everything unloaded, interacted with the sister company to make sure we had everything square, get everything lined up for the next day, then it was time to think of myself. Right. And up to that point, even like getting ready to leave from my base and all that kind of thing, like I was so busy planning the operation and make sure, everybody understood what they were supposed to do. And we had all this stuff and the Apaches were laid on and all that kind of stuff. I didn't think about myself. Right. The first night we got there, so now I've got everything done, everything's ready. There's nothing left to do between now and the time we roll out the next night, right? So now I get to take care of myself. So I ate a little something, and I was like, oh, I gotta figure out where I'm laying down, right? Where I'm gonna get a little bit of sleep. And so on this base, there were a few little buildings, and to call them buildings is kind of a strong word. They're more like kind of shacks with some wiring, and they're bunkhouses, really, kind of one story. They're just enough to shove a few cots into. So I found one of these buildings there, and with an empty cot, and so I went in there. Um, and as I was walking in, there were some people in there, but they were all contractors. And so, for those that don't know, contractors in this sense, for the in Afghanistan, we'd have these contractors, which is where it'd just be civilians, usually former military of some kind, and they'd go through different companies like KBR, and they'd be paid to come and live in Afghanistan on these bases and build things for us, electricians, plumbers, uh, carpenters, all kinds of things, right? So I walked into this building, and there were a few of these contractors there who were living there as a part of their contract. And so as I was walking in, I looked down, and this one guy had an Auburn blanket. I was like, "Huh, War Eagle." And he looked at me, kind of questioning. He said, "War Eagle." So then we got to talking, and it turns out he was an '89 grad. I was like, "Well, I'm an '06 grad." So then we got to talking and telling all kinds of stories about our time at our alma mater, and it was great. So the conversation kind of ended, and I went on and found my rack there, set my kit down, and drifted off to sleep for a few hours before we rolled out. So I woke up and we went and did the operation, uh, and came back in. I probably got back into that building, back into that same rack. I don't know, God, 2 or 3 in the morning. Just exhausted, covered in dirt and sweat, and again, like barely had time to like take off my kit and my boots before I kind of passed out there. Okay, so I managed to choose like the one bunk underneath the air conditioning. And I was, covered in sweat and dirt. So you can imagine uh, that I started to get cold really quickly. So now, because like I didn't think about myself, right? I had no sleep. I didn't bring my sleep bag. I didn't bring a blanket. I didn't do anything. And like I could have gone and asked so many people for help. I could have gone to the sister company's commander, gone, me and him were great friends. I could have, hey dude, I need some help. Can you give me a blanket or something? Or, even one of my soldiers, right? The guy who drives my truck, I'll never forget him. We're like best buddies. I could have asked him for help, right? Somebody that's by rank, right? He underneath me, if you want to look at it like that, right? I could have asked him for help and he would have done it in a heartbeat. There's so many people there I could have
Yeah.
just asked for help. Hey, I need a blanket. And I didn't. I was like, I'm just gonna lay here. And that's just the way it is because, I had to do all this other stuff and I'm the leader and that's the way it's gotta be. Right.
Yeah.
I laid down, like I said, got my boots off. I think I wiped off my face a little bit. And then tried to go to sleep. So of course I woke up about 10 minutes later, just like shivering. And again, this is like 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't know how long I was sitting there tossing and turning and shivering.
Your teeth chattering's probably what
Yeah,
woke other
yeah.
people up.
Yeah, I guess so. So, I felt this tap on my shoulder, and I rolled over, and it was 89 grad,
Yeah.
and he had the Auburn blanket, and he handed me the blanket and said, "I'm glad you're back, War Eagle,"
Yeah.
and that was it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, it's a really cool story, a really cool Auburn moment, but also kind of a demonstration of that human element, right?
Yeah, and it's those small things that we take for granted a lot of time, and you know that little bit of him taking the time to notice, but hey, this guy's over here, you know, maybe kind of going through some what I call self punishment, because I
Yeah,
know I'll do that and be like, oh, I didn't bring it, so that's my fault, so I'm
that's
just
my
gonna lay
fault.
here and
That's my
suffer
fault.
through it.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Because I mean that's what leaders do a lot of time. Like, well, I don't
Yeah,
want to put anybody else out, so I'll
exactly.
just suffer through. But he recognized that and was like, wait a minute, this guy's over here, been working hard. And there's also that, being in a combat zone, that danger element. Because every time
Mhm.
you roll out, like there is, nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah, there's a chance you're not rolling back in.
Yeah. And so for him to, kind of, acknowledge that, say, hey, glad you're back. And here,
Mhm.
try not and freeze while you're here. Don't get a
Yeah.
cold weather injury here in our little shack. And I think that's even while you and him did not have a official working relationship
Yeah.
or weren't in the same organization, you know, that was a that was leadership behavior coming from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of times people get hung up on, well, I'm not in a leadership position or I can't be a leader until someone, assigns me that. It's like, no, there are little things, and this is an example of the kind of the human side of it and not just I mean, he didn't come over there and plan your logistics for you.
Yeah.
He came over and gave you a blanket. But leadership is so much more than just the operational side of things and just the decisions and planning. It's these interactions that build that trust and those
Yeah.
relationships. And I think that it also goes back and shows how important you just stopping and talking with somebody who, what, 72 hours prior, you had no idea who that person was?
Yeah.
and to then stop and talk, and because we a lot of times we'll be like, yeah, you need to go out and talk with your people and get to know them, and people think that that is a it's going to take you 3 years to get to know somebody and build a
Yeah,
relationship.
or that it's just for show, right?
Right. And it's not. I mean, you had one good interaction, it's a little bit of commonality to talk about. And then a little bit, 24 hours later, he's stepping up and giving you that help because it's difficult. Leaders don't naturally ask for it. I think that that is something that, I mean, I've done the same thing. Times where I should have gone and asked for help. And he's like, no, 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 I can figure this out.
I got it.
I'm just gonna, fight through it. And it reminds me of back in so when you go through Ranger School in Florida phase, there's a tradition of the it is actually the student pilots from uh, that are in training that come and fly the air assault missions for Ranger students. And years ago, I want to say it was back in the 90s, maybe, don't quote me. One of those aircraft went down, and the Ranger students actually were the first ones to go out and render aid to the pilots and help get them out of there, if I remember the story correctly. And so, as payback to like, as a thank you, when those aircraft fly the Ranger students, they will actually they bring food. The most highly prized commodity in Ranger School is
Yeah,
food because you don't get much.
you
That
don't
and
get much.
sleep, but there's no way to like hand you a pack of sleep.
Yeah,
So you get food instead. Because when you're on the aircraft, it is that crew chief that's in charge, and it's not the Ranger instructor anymore. And so you kind of go by their rules.
yeah,
At least that's what they say. But I mean, I'm sure somebody has different opinions on that. But I think that so you get on there and they call them the pogey birds for pogey bait. For those of you that heard that term before,
yeah. We're not
but
gonna
when
explain that here, but
so they come through and they picked us up, and the the aircraft I was on, they handed out McDonald's cheeseburgers. Greatest thing, like you couldn't have. I would have chosen that over a bar of gold at that point. And so I ate mine in probably about 8 seconds, and guy sitting two seats over from me, he tears his in half and hands half of it to me. And it felt like a trap because
like a trap.
because like food is again such a highly
Yeah,
prized commodity. Like you would occasionally somebody, I mean, guys would take care of each other and share food, but he would. I remember he looked at me and he said, "You need this more than I do." And so I was like, wait, how bad of shape am I in? He had actually recycled one of the other phases, so he had gotten a little time to eat a little bit. And so at that point I was pretty well starved, I think. And so, but like in that moment, even it's like, man, this guy is offering, he's giving me that help, but I still had this little bit of reservation of like, should I take this? Should I give this to somebody else? What should I do? And so it was difficult just to accept the help.
yeah,
And I mean, when somebody's handing you food, be like, look, you look like you need this, but it was still, and I think that's a something that I mean, this is not exclusive to me. It's not like because I'm great at this or anything. This is something that I think happens in the kind of the leader brain of always trying to worry about other people.
yeah,
But it kind of shows it in that environment of us all trying to take care of each other. He was then demonstrating that leadership. And, as your peers going through that, there's not, other than for the assigned missions, you're not really like working for anybody. But he, again, that was him demonstrating that leader behavior. And it's something that has always stood out to me of like, somebody offering help, but then even being as hungry as I was, like not really wanting to take it,
hmm,
feeling like
yeah,
I should be giving them my food.
yeah,
And even though in that, you know, because of the way Ranger School is, you're not really, rank is not, no one
yeah,
wears your rank. You're not really holding any official positions as you go throughout. But I think it's an interesting thing that leaders run into.
Yeah, because it's contrary to, the way we operate, right? And we get to task overload, right? It's kind of like the almost like the mad scientist, right? They're so
Yeah.
busy working on their project, they don't have time to shave, or that's why they look like mad scientists. But yeah, so it's a sometimes it's hard for us to look internal, right? Look internally and figure out our own needs, right? Which it can be hard for businesses too, right? Because a lot of times, you get the sticker shock of if you find you have a problem that needs solving, right? And it's something your business doesn't do or can't do, right? Well, first off, you have to be, you have to kind of think through your structure and your own profit and loss statement and see, oh, well, we need this, or we need to do this. Well, we can just make that, right? That's cheaper because you're
Yeah.
trying to avoid the sticker shock of going out and buying that product or service from another company or entity, right? So instead of trying to force it and trying to create a whole new business segment within your own business that is going to cost you additional time and money, right?
Yeah.
To say, hey, wait, maybe maybe it's worth it to outsource this, right?
Yeah. I think an example of that would be for a long time, Apple did not make their screens on their iPhone.
Mm, mm,
They tried
yeah,
to, and best I recall, they were having problems with it passing the drop test, and so all the screens were breaking. And eventually, they realized, hey, we're not the experts at screen manufacturing. Hey, we're really good at all this other stuff, but we have found this place, and so they had to eventually ask for help. They reached out to somebody who was the expert, and they made their screens for them. So businesses and leaders, it's kind of goes hand in hand, just because I think it goes back to that human element.
yeah,
Organizations are just a group of people. you know it's not just that Apple had to make that decision. There was some person with a name, a telephone number, and an office. They had to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, I need you to help me, or
yeah,
even ask, can you help me?
yeah,
And sometimes, especially, it doesn't matter if you're just a really successful leader or a really successful organization, business, it's hard to ask for help.
yeah,
And even if you're just starting out, like, you also want to show that you're capable. So you don't want
yeah,
to ask for help.
yeah. Because somebody had to say, you know what, guys, like this isn't working. We clearly we cannot do this ourselves. We we have reached the point where we are diminishing marginal returns, right? We're not achieving what we need to achieve internally. So somebody had to, stand up and have that courage, or plot out the case and say we can't do this ourselves. We need some help,
Yeah.
right?
It and sometimes that goes back to those difficult conversations leaders have to
Mm,
have. Of sometimes you may have another team member who's just set on, we're gonna figure this out, and you have to be like, oh, time out. Like, this is not productive. Like you said, we're gonna spend more money trying to solve this problem than just buy the solution.
yeah, yeah. So think about me in the blanket, right? Like, and when I stood there in front of my rack without a blanket, covered in sweat, right? I could have sat there and said, "Whoa, I need some help," right? And gone and asked any number of people. There's probably 100 people I could have asked that would have helped me, that I knew very well and had some sort of leader relationship with, right? But I chose not to. And because of the actions of that one man, right? I got a good night's sleep, and how do you calculate the ultimate output of that, right?
Right.
So you have to kind of do a little bit of internal analysis first, realize you need help, realize you can't do it yourself, and then be willing to to make the case and ask for help. Okay, we can't do this ourselves, we have to outsource this.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing that you brought up there, doing some internal analysis. We talk a lot about, hey, use this framework for decision
Mhm.
making, use this for planning. This is what you do in this situation. But sometimes you've got to turn all that analysis and decision making. Sometimes you got to look at yourself.
Mhm.
and not just be outward facing with all of that thought and planning, but it's like, okay, hey, what am I really going to be able to rest? Am I going to be able to take care of my team the next day? I need to go and ask somebody, hey, can I, get some help with this? Can you help manufacture this for me or whatever the case is? Because if not, then you're not maximizing your potential.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that, like we've talked about before, humans have all these different variables in them. And it is one of the challenging aspects of leadership is dealing with the human dimension. But I think it's important that, we talk about it a little bit. And so we wanted to share some thoughts on that. And if y'all have any other things you want to hear from us, be sure to, shoot us a note. You can get in touch with us either via our social media or our website at commandpostcohort.com.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing from you.
Y'all have a good one.
As always, take these lessons, use them, and spread them. Everyone is welcome in the cohort.
Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe for more, and drop us a line at commandpostcohort.com to request a specific topic.
We'll see you next time on the cohort.